Kody Brown just said something so cold, so heartless that even his own children couldn't find words to respond. Picture the scene. The family patriarch standing in the home where holidays were celebrated, birthdays were marked, and memories were made with all 4 of his wives and 18 children. And what does Kody have to say about those moments? He calls them poison. Literal poison running through his veins, contaminating his present happiness with Robyn. The confession came during what should have been an emotional farewell to the Flagstaff mansion, the last house where the entire Brown family lived under connected roofs. Instead of nostalgia or bittersweet reflection, Kody delivered a statement that left viewers absolutely stunned. He admitted on camera that he's been shaking off the remorse, shaking off every Christmas, every holiday, every birthday spent with Meri, Janelle, and Christine. In his own words, these memories feel like poison inside him all the time, and he's desperate to escape to his new mansion with Robyn, where he won't be haunted by the ghosts of his failed plural marriage. But here's where it gets even more devastating. His kids were right there. Aurora, Brianna, and the others stood in that house listening to their father declare that the family memories they cherish are toxic waste. He needs to purge from his system. When Kody asked if they felt funny about leaving, if they were sad, the silence was deafening. These children had nothing to say, and sources close to the situation reveal exactly why. Kody made this massive decision without consulting them, without asking how they felt about abandoning the last physical space that represented their family unit. Insiders claim the kids view this house completely differently than their father does. To them, it represents hope, the possibility that maybe somehow the family could reunite. To Kody, it's a prison of memories he can't wait to demolish in his mind. He's literally running toward a fresh start in a bigger, more expensive home where he can pretend the past 3 decades never happened. The contrast is absolutely staggering. While Kody talks about finally having a Thanksgiving and Christmas where he won't be poisoned by memories of his ex-wives, his children are mourning the loss of their family home. They're sentimental about the place where they grew up, where their siblings laughed together, where the whole family gathered for those very holidays Kody now describes as toxic. What kind of father stands in front of his kids and admits that memories of their childhoods, their birthdays, their family celebrations are poisoning him? What kind of man needs to shake off the remorse of having loved and lived with the mothers of his children? The whole situation reveals a level of emotional detachment that's honestly chilling. And this was just the beginning of an episode that exposed exactly how Kody Brown has rewritten history to paint himself as the victim instead of the villain. Let's rewind and understand exactly what triggered this confession, because the context makes Kody's poison comment even more disturbing. The Brown family patriarch and his favorite wife Robyn just purchased a massive new mansion across town, and they're in full panic mode trying to pack up and move out of their current home. But this isn't just any move. This is Kody literally fleeing from the physical reminder that he once had a large, functioning plural family. The house they're leaving behind holds enormous significance. This was the last place where all 4 wives lived in relative proximity, where the family structure Kody claimed to cherish actually existed in some form. But now with Meri, Janelle, and Christine all gone, Kody can't get out of there fast enough. The irony is almost too painful to process. He spent years preaching about plural marriage, about the importance of family, about building a legacy, and now he's running away from the evidence of his own failure. Word on the street suggests the new mansion is significantly larger and more expensive than the Flagstaff house. Sources claim Robyn finally got the palace she's been dreaming about, complete with enough space to house her ever-growing collection of whatever it is that woman collects. Meanwhile, the home they're abandoning looks like a war zone. Cameras captured the aftermath of their packing efforts, and it's honestly baffling how 2 adults with months of preparation and professional movers still managed to leave the place looking like a tornado hit it. Random items scattered everywhere, pencils and pens and jewelry and chair parts just littering the floors. Kody's brother Michael came to help, but even with extra hands, the chaos was undeniable. Insiders whisper that Kody is a procrastinator extraordinaire, someone who talks big about leadership and planning but can't even organize a simple move without creating disaster. The mess in that house served as a perfect metaphor for the mess he made of his family. But here's what really stings. While Kody and Robyn are smiling and excited about their fresh start in a bigger, better home, his older children are processing loss. To them, leaving this house means saying goodbye to the last physical space where the whole family existed together. Even though the family dynamics had already crumbled, even though the sister wives had already scattered, this house represented a connection to what was. It held the memories of when all the siblings lived close enough to see each other regularly, when there was still hope that plural marriage could work for the Browns. Janelle found out about the new mansion purchase through the grapevine. Can you believe that? Kody and Robyn didn't even have the decency to call her and inform her they were making this major move. Zero communication, zero respect, zero consideration for the mother of 6 of his children. Janelle admitted she was worried that the much bigger mortgage might make Kody even greedier when it came time to divide the Coyote Pass property, though sources confirm he eventually gave each wife their fair quarter. The most heartbreaking moment of this entire episode wasn't Kody's poison confession. As shocking as that was, it was watching his children's faces as they processed what their father had just admitted. The cameras captured something raw and painful, a moment of realization that their dad values his fresh start with Robyn more than the memories he created with them. When Kody gathered his kids and asked if they felt funny about leaving the house, if they were sad about this major transition, the response was absolutely crushing. Silence. Complete and total silence. Aurora couldn't articulate her feelings. Brianna had nothing to say. The other children just stared, processing the fact that their father had made this life-altering decision without ever consulting them about how they felt. Sources close to the family reveal that this lack of communication is vintage Kody Brown. He doesn't respect his children's opinions or emotions enough to include them in major decisions that affect their lives. He simply makes choices based on what Robyn wants, what makes Robyn happy, what gives Robyn the lifestyle she desires, and then expects everyone else to fall in line without complaint. The children have learned over the years that their voices don't matter in Kody's kingdom, so why bother speaking up? But the psychological impact of what happened in that moment goes so much deeper. Imagine being a teenager or young adult and hearing your father say that memories of your childhood, memories that include you, are poisoning him. That the holidays you celebrated together, the birthdays you shared, the family moments you treasured are contaminating his present happiness. How does a child process that level of rejection? Industry insiders suggest the kids are experiencing a profound sense of loss that Kody simply cannot comprehend. To them, this house represents the last physical connection to their intact family. It's where they saw their siblings regularly, where there was still some semblance of the family structure they grew up believing in. Even though the sister wives had already separated, even though the family dynamics had deteriorated, this house was a symbol that maybe, just maybe, things could somehow heal. Kody, on the other hand, sees this house as a tomb of failed relationships he needs to escape. He's not sentimental about the past because acknowledging those memories means confronting his own failures as a husband and father. It's so much easier to call them poison and run toward a shiny new mansion where he can pretend the last 30 years never happened. The contrast between Kody's enthusiasm for the move and his children's devastation couldn't be more stark. While he's practically skipping toward his new life with Robyn, his kids are mourning. They're grieving the final death of their family unit, the end of any hope that their father might prioritize them over his favorite wife. And Kody doesn't even notice their pain because he's too busy shaking off the remorse, too consumed with his own desire to start fresh without the burden of memories that remind him he's human and flawed. Just when you thought this episode couldn't deliver any more shocking moments, Meri Brown accidentally created one of the most genuinely awkward and revealing scenes in Sister Wives history. And the best part? Sources suggest this wasn't scripted or planned. This was pure, unfiltered emotion catching Meri completely off guard. The scene takes place at her friend Jen's bike store, where Meri is discussing her adventures in the dating world. She's been on the apps, she's had a matchmaker, and she even matched with a guy named Ron. They've had a few phone conversations, and Meri admits he's a really nice guy. She's also dating a few other men, though the only detail we get is that one lives in Colorado. The whole conversation feels casual and hopeful, like Meri is genuinely trying to move forward with her life. Then comes the moment that nobody saw coming. Meri starts talking about what she finds attractive in potential partners, and she mentions long curly hair. Now, when most people hear long curly hair, they might picture some beachy surfer type or maybe a musician with that effortless rock star look. That's apparently what Meri was thinking too, just describing a general preference for guys who know how to style longer hair. But as the words kept coming out of her mouth, something shifted. Jen's eyes got really big, but she stayed completely still, almost frozen in fascination about where this conversation was heading. You could see her trying not to react, trying not to interrupt, because she was genuinely curious if Meri realized what she was actually describing. And then it hit Meri like a freight train. The long curly hair she was talking about, she was literally describing Kody Brown, her ex-husband, the man who called their shared memories poison, the father of her only child, the person she spent decades loving and fighting for in a plural marriage that ultimately rejected her. And the moment of realization was absolutely priceless. Meri turned so far to the side that she was practically facing away from the camera, giggling and laughing and covering her face in genuine embarrassment. This wasn't some manufactured drama for the cameras. This wasn't a setup like some of the other moments viewers have questioned over the seasons. This was a visceral, authentic reaction from a woman who suddenly realized she'd been subconsciously describing her ex-husband's most distinctive physical feature. Insiders claim this moment reveals so much about where Meri is emotionally. Despite everything Kody put her through, despite the years of emotional neglect and the public humiliation of watching him prioritize Robyn over everyone else, there's still a part of Meri that's connected to him. Not because she wants to be, but because you don't just erase 3 decades of marriage and shared history overnight. The accidental confession also highlights how complicated moving on really is for these women. Meri can date other men, she can match with Ron and talk to guys in Colorado, she can genuinely want a fresh start. But her brain still defaults to Kody when describing attraction because he was her reference point for so long. It's both sad and entirely human. While Meri is genuinely trying to move forward with her dating life, another layer of drama emerged when the conversation turned to dating apps. And this is where Kody and Robyn revealed just how petty and bitter they really are. Because instead of discussing whether they would ever use dating apps themselves, they turned it into a full-scale attack on Christine. Let's establish the facts first. Kody Brown met the love of her life, David Woolley, on a dating app. He was actually about to cancel his subscription when he saw that he had matched with Christine, so he paid to renew for an entire year just to pursue that connection with her. It's honestly one of the most romantic origin stories to come out of this entire Sister Wives saga. David saw Christine, recognized something special, and invested in the possibility of a relationship with her. But when producers asked the other family members about dating apps, the responses were wildly different. Janelle said no way, that's not her thing, she's not gonna do it. Meri admitted she'd try anything at this point because nothing else is really working out and she doesn't have many options in her small town. And Christine, interestingly enough, downplayed the whole thing. She didn't reiterate that she actually met her husband on a dating app. Instead, she claimed the vast majority of people on dating apps are swingers and people in open marriages. Sources suggest Christine was trying to distance herself from the stigma some people still attach to online dating, even though it's become completely mainstream. But here's the kicker. Christine's comment about open marriages is probably more accurate than she realizes. A lot of guys on dating apps claim they're in open marriages when they're really just cheating and looking for something on the side. That's the unfortunate reality of modern dating. Then we get to Kody and Robyn, and oh boy, the judgment just pours out of them like toxic sludge. Robyn says she can't even imagine dating through an app on a phone, that it sounds so disconnected. She questions whether you'd even find anybody serious on there or if people are just looking for hookups. Kody jumps in talking about how you can't get the real essence of a person through an app, that you're just reading a resume. The hypocrisy is absolutely staggering. Here's Kody, the man who claims to be some kind of relationship expert, dismissing the very platform that brought Christine genuine happiness. Insiders whisper that this entire conversation was a thinly veiled attack on Christine's relationship with David. Kody and Robyn can't stand the fact that Christine found real love, authentic partnership, and actual devotion from a man she met online. It exposes everything that was missing in her marriage to Kody. But here's the truly ironic part. Maybe a dating app where you have to text back and forth and really get to know somebody through writing before physical attraction takes over would have been exactly what Kody needed. Maybe if he'd been forced to develop an intellectual and emotional connection before his eyes got involved, he wouldn't have ended up with 3 wives he couldn't truly love and one he's obsessed with. The producers of Sister Wives deserve major credit for what happened next because they brought up the one comparison that absolutely destroys every excuse Kody Brown has ever made about why his plural marriage failed. They confronted him about Joe Darger, a successful polygamist whose family has been featured on the show multiple times and who even co-wrote a book with the Browns. Rumor has it the show Big Love was loosely based on the Darger family, not the Browns. And Joe Darger's marriages are still thriving. Janelle was the first to bring him up, giving kudos to Joe for being the one polygamist they know who's actually done it right. She admits it takes a special kind of guy, but according to her testimony, it absolutely can work. Joe has done such a good job managing his relationships with his 3 wives that the family remains strong, united, and genuinely happy. The contrast to the Brown family implosion couldn't be more obvious. So the producers presented this reality to Kody. They basically said, you keep claiming polygamy doesn't work. But let's look at Joe Darger and his family. What's your reaction to that? Explain yourself. And watching Kody scramble to justify why Joe succeeded where he failed was absolutely painful to witness. His first move was to try rewriting Joe's story entirely. Kody starts off by saying Joe had a really decent beginning of success, as if to imply things went downhill from there. But that's a complete fabrication. Joe is still married to all 3 of his wives, and they still love him. The family is still functioning beautifully. But Kody needs to bring Joe down because if Joe looks good, Kody looks terrible by comparison. So how does he attempt to diminish Joe's accomplishments? He claims it's because Joe's wives were all culturally homogenous. They were related by blood, 2 of the 3 sharing the same family background. According to Kody's twisted logic, that's the only reason Joe's marriages worked. It wasn't because Joe was a great man, a strong leader, or an emotionally available husband. No, it's just because his wives shared DNA and came from similar backgrounds. The excuse is absolutely insulting on multiple levels. First, it completely dismisses Joe's actual efforts and emotional intelligence. Second, it implies that if Kody had just married triplets or sisters, his family would still be intact. He's literally saying the problem wasn't his behavior, his favoritism, or his complete inability to love multiple women equally. The problem was that his wives weren't homogenous enough. Sources close to the situation reveal this is classic Kody deflection. He cannot and will not take responsibility for his failures, so he has to create elaborate explanations for why other polygamists succeed. It can't be because they're better men than him. It can't be because they actually follow through on their commitments. It has to be some external factor, some lucky circumstance that Kody just didn't have access to. The mental gymnastics required to maintain this level of delusion are honestly Olympic-worthy. Just when you thought Kody's excuses couldn't get any more pathetic, Kody Brown swooped in with one of the most brilliant analogies ever delivered on Sister Wives. The producers wisely gave her a chance to explain why she thinks Joe Darger's family succeeded while the Browns crashed and burned, and her answer was absolutely perfect. Kody breaks it down using a comparison between architects and firemen. She explains that architects have a plan, a master blueprint they follow without deviation. They think ahead, they prepare for contingencies, they build something solid from the ground up with intention and purpose. Firemen, on the other hand, are constantly in reactive mode, just putting out fires and rescuing people from disasters, never actually preventing the problems in the first place. Then comes the punchline that left viewers absolutely cheering. Kody was a fireman, and Joe was an architect. Boom. Drop the microphone. Exit stage left. That single statement encapsulates everything wrong with Kody Brown's approach to plural marriage and family leadership. He never had a plan. He never thought ahead. He never built anything intentional or sustainable. He just bounced from crisis to crisis, putting out fires that he himself had started through his negligence and favoritism. The analogy is so devastatingly accurate that it hurts. Think about Kody's entire approach to his marriages. He'd rotate between wives without any real schedule or fairness. He'd make promises he couldn't keep. He'd create jealousy and competition instead of unity. And then when everything inevitably exploded, he'd rush in trying to fix it with grand gestures and empty words, only to create 3 more fires in the process. Joe Darger, on the other hand, approached plural marriage like the architect Kody describes. Sources familiar with the Darger family reveal that Joe established clear expectations from the beginning. He created systems for fairness, maintained consistent communication with all his wives, and actually followed through on his commitments. He built a structure that could sustain multiple relationships because he planned for it. Kody never planned anything beyond his own immediate desires. When he wanted to court Robyn, he didn't think about how that would affect Meri, Janelle, and Kody. When he wanted to move to Flagstaff, he didn't create a plan for how to maintain connections with all his children. When he wanted to spend all his time at Robyn's house during the pandemic, he didn't consider the long-term damage to his other relationships. He just acted and then scrambled to deal with the fallout. The fireman analogy also perfectly captures Kody's victim mentality. Firemen are heroes in their own narrative, bravely fighting blazes and saving people. Kody genuinely sees himself as the hero of his story, the man who tried so hard to keep his family together despite all the obstacles. But what he refuses to acknowledge is that he's the arsonist who started the fires in the first place. You can't be both the hero firefighter and the person who brought the gasoline and matches. Kody's architect versus fireman comparison will go down as one of the most intelligent takedowns in reality television history, and Kody knows it. After Kody delivered that brutal architect versus fireman analogy, you'd think Kody would have the sense to stop talking, but no, the producers let him keep going, and what came out of his mouth next was somehow even more damaging than everything he'd already said. Kody Brown actually admitted on camera that he couldn't love his wives individually, and then tried to frame it as everyone else's fault. Here's the exact confession that viewers couldn't believe they were hearing. Kody said he felt devoted to their family and to plural marriage as a a concept, but then he struggled to be devoted specifically to every single wife. Let that sink in for a moment. The man who chose plural marriage, who courted and married 4 different women, who fathered 18 children with them, just admitted he couldn't actually be devoted to the individual women he married. This isn't the revelation Kody thinks it is. He's not being vulnerable or honest in a productive way. He's literally just pointing out that he has no ability to be a man in plural marriage. He could collect wives, sure. He's great at the courtship phase, at making grand promises, at selling the dream of this big, beautiful plural family, but he can't love them, he can't nurture them, he can't provide for them financially or emotionally, and most importantly, he can't lead them. Sources close to the family suggest that leadership comment would sting Kody the most if he truly understood what people think of him. He really believes he's a leader, some kind of patriarch guiding his family with wisdom and strength, but the reality is he's completely inept at leadership. A real leader creates unity, establishes fairness, and inspires loyalty through consistent behavior. Kody created division, showed blatant favoritism, and destroyed loyalty through broken promises and emotional abandonment. But Kody doesn't stop at admitting his own failures. Oh no, he has to deflect blame back onto his ex-wives. He claims that vice versa. He doesn't think the wives were devoted to him or to each other as a whole. The audacity is absolutely breathtaking. These women gave him decades of their lives. They raised his children. They supported his ridiculous business ventures. They moved multiple times to accommodate his whims. They shared him with other women even when it broke their hearts. Meri fought for their marriage long after Kody had emotionally divorced her. Janelle stayed loyal even when Kody barely acknowledged her existence. Christine tried to make it work for years before she finally found the courage to leave. But according to Kody's twisted narrative, they weren't devoted enough. They didn't love him sufficiently. They failed to maintain devotion to each other as sister wives. Industry insiders suggest this is textbook narcissistic deflection. Kody cannot accept responsibility for the implosion of his family, so he has to rewrite history to make himself the victim. In his version of events, he was this devoted husband trying his best while his selfish wives refused to cooperate with each other or show him proper appreciation. The delusion required to maintain this fantasy is honestly staggering. After admitting he couldn't be devoted to his individual wives and blaming them for not being devoted enough to him, Kody finally landed on what he believes is the real reason his family fell apart, and naturally, it has nothing to do with his own behavior. According to Kody Brown, the problem was jealousy. He stirred up jealousy in his wives, and that's what led to the end of the family. Let's break down this excuse because it's perhaps the most infuriating deflection Kody has offered yet. Yes, Kody, you absolutely did stir up jealousy, but jealousy doesn't just materialize out of thin air because your wives are petty or immature. Jealousy emerges when there's clear, undeniable inequity in how you treat people who are supposed to be equal partners in your life. In Kody's mind, his wives should have just gotten over their jealousy of Robyn. So what if he gave her a house that's double the square footage of everyone else's homes? So what if he funneled all his money from the family fund directly to Robyn and then took extra on top of that? So what if he spent all his time at her house, celebrated every holiday with her, and made sure her children had his constant presence while his other kids barely saw him? Sources close to the situation reveal the extent of Kody's favoritism was absolutely staggering. While Meri lived alone in a rental, while Janelle struggled to make ends meet, while Christine's household operated on a tight budget, Robyn lived like a kept woman. Those are Kody's own words, by the way. He literally called Robyn a kept woman, admitting on camera that he financially supports her in a way he never supported his other wives. But according to Kody's logic, Meri, Janelle, and Christine should have just been mature enough to accept this gross inequality without complaint. They should have celebrated the fact that their husband was giving everything to their sister wife while they got scraps. They should have smiled and pretended everything was fair while watching Kody prioritize Robyn's comfort, Robyn's desires, and Robyn's children over everyone else. The jealousy excuse also conveniently ignores that these women tried for years to make peace with the inequity. They attempted to be sister wives despite the obvious favoritism. They supported each other through Kody's neglect. They raised their children to love their siblings even when their father was absent. But there's only so much blatant disrespect and inequality a person can endure before they finally say enough. Insiders suggest Kody genuinely believes that if his other wives had just been less jealous, less demanding of his time and resources, less vocal about the unfairness, everything would have worked out. He thinks the problem was their emotional reactions to his behavior, not the behavior itself. It's the ultimate example of someone blaming others for being upset instead of examining why they caused that upset in the first place. Kody wanted 3 women to accept being second-class citizens in their own marriages so he could keep his perfect life with Robyn intact. And when they refused to disappear quietly, he blamed their jealousy for ruining everything. The final scenes of this episode provided the most stark and painful contrast imaginable. While Kody's older children processed grief and loss, Kody and Robyn literally smiled their way into their new mansion, completely oblivious to the emotional devastation they were leaving behind. The cameras captured Kody and Robyn in their last moments at the Flagstaff house, and instead of reflection or sadness, there was nothing but joy radiating from them. Kody gathered everyone for a prayer, thanking God for their blessings and for this experience as they finished this part of their journey. The words sound humble, but the energy told a completely different story. Smiles all around, pure happiness, excitement about what's coming next. Robyn admitted she was kind of emotional about leaving, but her face told a different story. She wasn't mourning the loss of the family home. She was celebrating her victory. After years of wanting a bigger, better, more impressive house, she finally got exactly what she wanted, and Kody delivered it to her on a silver platter, financed by the family assets built through everyone's contributions over decades. But here's what makes this ending so absolutely heartbreaking. While Kody and Robyn prayed with gratitude and planned their fresh start, his older children from Meri, Janelle, and Christine were processing something entirely different. One of them admitted doing their own private goodbye to the house, because it was one of the last places they were all together as a family. The whole family was together at Christine's wedding held at this property, and now that connection was being severed forever. Sources reveal the psychological impact on these children cannot be overstated. They're watching their father choose a clean slate with Robyn over preserving any connection to their shared history. They're witnessing him describe memories that include them as poison he needs to purge. They're seeing him smile and celebrate while they grieve. And they're learning the painful lesson that in Kody Brown's world, they will always come second to whatever makes Robyn happy. The episode ended with this devastating juxtaposition. Kody moving toward his opulent castle on the other side of town, completely unburdened by remorse or reflection. His children left behind to process the reality that their father values his present comfort more than their emotional well-being. The whole family fractured beyond repair, and Kody calling it freedom from poison instead of recognizing it as the natural consequence of his own selfish choices. Industry insiders suggest this episode will be remembered as the moment Kody Brown fully exposed who he really is. Not a devoted father, not a committed husband, not a successful polygamist or spiritual leader, just a man who chose one woman over everyone else and then blamed everyone else for being upset about it. A man who calls his own children's memories poison because acknowledging them means confronting his failures. So what do you think? Can Kody ever repair the damage he's caused with his older children? Will they ever forgive him for choosing Robyn's happiness over their emotional needs? Drop your thoughts below, hit that like button, smash subscribe, and stay tuned because the next video is waiting and you will not believe what's coming next.